Dusk crept along the western shore of Alliance Lake, like a predator prowling through the undergrowth. The green moon blazed as bright as the sun, transforming the shadows in the marshlands into something deep and dangerous, like the quicksand that littered its swamps and bogs. Wildfur was content to lurk at the edge of Marsh Colony's base, while the rest of the colony had woken from their daytime slumber to eat, groom, and excitedly prepare for the moonlight meeting. Wildfur lowered his chin to his crossed paws. No one was going to ask anything of him that night, so he saw no point in waking at all. Unfortunately, the incessant chatter of the marshlanders stopped him from getting back to sleep.
"I hope I get assigned to bird flight,"
a white and gray Molly squeaked.
"You can have them. I want Breezeheart to train me,"
another kitten, her brother if Wildfur had to guess, exclaimed far too loudly. Wildfur turned his head away and covered his ears with a frustrated groan. There were so few young cats in Marsh Colony, he had almost forgotten that the full moon meant more than just the moonlight meeting. They would begin their field training that night, and be taken to their first moonlight meeting to be presented to the Alliance. Wildfur was pleased at the idea of having a mostly empty base to himself. If only they would hurry up and leave.
"Oh, there's Captain Hawkshell," the Molly squealed.
"Be on your best behavior, you two," Kestrel Snap mewed.
"Of course, we'll make you proud," the Tom Kitten purred.
Wildfur stood to move further away, even if it took him beyond the edge of the base. He couldn't block out their voices, so he'd go somewhere he didn't have to hear them. Bitterness twisted his gut, stinging like thistles. He was distantly aware that this was a problem he should talk to someone about, but who in the marshlands could he possibly turn to? Captain Hawkshell was far too busy to trouble herself with the emotional needs of a low-ranking ranger. Leafstorm had never liked him, and had even less patience for him now that she'd been named second. Small Pebble was a skilled healer when it came to physical wounds, but was otherwise absorbed in her own little world of cultivating fungi. He hadn't been able to talk to his parents, Blueflower and Crowstalker, without devolving into a shouting match since before he'd been made a ranger. There was only one cat he could open up to. Almost without meaning to, Wildfur looked toward the lake, even though he couldn't see it through the trees. All the way across the lake, there was Spotted Shadow, his one true friend and mate. She would listen to his troubles and confide her own to him, and they'd each know they weren't as alone as they felt in their own colonies.
"Where do you think you're going?"
Wildfur rolled his eyes at the sounds of Leafstorm's demanding mew. He didn't dignify her question with a response, and she didn't wait for one.
"Captain Hawkshell is about to speak to the colony. We all need to be present."
The temptation to resist was strong. Whether Wildfur was chosen to attend the moonlight meeting or not mattered little to him, since Spotted Shadow hadn't been there in months. He would either sit by himself at the edge of the base, or sit by himself at the edge of the Moonlight Island. However, getting into a fight with Leafstorm required more energy than he had to give. "Fine," he muttered, following the pale brown tabby toward the captain's den, where Hawkshell made her announcements. At one time it had been a massive redwood tree, but lightning had felled the forest giant and petrified its wood. The other rangers slept under the fallen remains of that same tree, and a few hollowed-out branches provided shelter for Marsh Colony's kittens and elders. Now the whole colony sat among the exposed roots in front of the opening of the captain's den to listen eagerly. Wildfur kept to the outside of the meeting, one paw barely touching the end of a root. Leafstorm scoffed at his half-hearted gesture before making her way to Hawkshell's side. For once, there was a bit of warmth in Hawkshell's commanding yowl. "It is my privilege, as your captain, to announce that tonight 2 of our young cats will take their first steps toward becoming rangers. I have discussed plans for their training with our fine mentors, Birdflight and Breezeheart." Her one eye scanned the crowd, and she nodded to Birdflight, then blinked in surprise when she failed to find the other mentor. "Where is Breezeheart?" "I saw him and Sunfire leaving the base this morning. Maybe they decided to sleep out of base and are on their way back, Falcon Swoop said. Unease spread through the crowd, despite Falcon Swoop's confident suggestion. Sunfire missing a meeting was nothing out of the ordinary, but Breezeheart hadn't stopped trying to prove he belonged in Marsh Colony since the day he and Crowstalker had joined. Breezeheart had also never stopped bothering Wildfur about being a more outgoing ranger, worrying over the actions of his nephew like they would reflect on his own status in the colony. As if sensing the unrest, the Dusk scouting group returned at that moment with a sharp cry of, "Captain!" "Report, Half-Mask," Hawkshell answered, her claws sliding out of their sheaths on instinct. Wildfur's pelt bristled despite himself, the few matted patches pulling at his skin with sharp pricks of pain. "There's been an attack," Half-Mask answered between panting breaths. "We followed Sunfire's trail, along the Oak Colony border, and we found—" He shuddered. "I'm sorry, Captain. We found Sunfire and Breezeheart dead." Sunfire. Hawkshell's single eye clouded with grief for a moment. "Are you suggesting Oak Colony is responsible for this?" "No. Their wounds were too severe to have come from any cat, and there was an odd scent in the area. It was unlike anything I have ever seen or smelled before." Half-Mask's fur still stood on end despite his attempts to keep his voice calm. "Tigerstripe and Snowstorm are bringing their bodies now. I had Blueflower hang back to cover the trail, and I'll help her as soon as I'm dismissed." "Go now," Hawkshell said. Half-Mask dipped his head before fleeing up the fallen log and out of the base again. The captain cleared her throat before continuing. "Until we know more about this threat, no one is to leave the base alone. I will warn the other colonies tonight at the Moonlight meeting." She paused again until her voice gave away no hint of emotion. "Captain Elmtail has told me that Oak Colony weaves thorns into the outer edge of their nursery. I would like us to do the same until the danger has passed. Keepers, see to it." "At once, Captain Hawkshell," Shrewbelly said, rushing to the nursery where his young kitten was blissfully asleep, unaware that anything was wrong. "I want 2 envoys to stay in the base when Leafstorm and I are not here. Indigo Eyes and Mousetail, I'm afraid you'll have to miss the meeting tonight," Hawkshell went on. "It's no trouble, Captain. We'll keep Marsh Colony safe in your absence," Mousetail said. Indigo Eyes nuzzled the white and gray kittens, who had been eagerly awaiting the announcement of their field training. "Sorry I won't get to be there to introduce you to the other colonies, but you'll have your mother and Birdflight." "Yes, what about the New Claws?" Birdflight asked. Hawkshell blinked, her gaze distant. "Birdflight, you're our only mentor now, so you'll have to oversee their training yourself and personally train Ice." Earlier in the evening, this would have probably made Ice emit a high-pitched shriek that would have hurt Wildfur's ears. Now she only shifted to stand by Birdflight, and the older white and gray spotted cat curled their tail around Ice. The other kitten looked around nervously. Without Breezeheart to train him, who would he be assigned to? "Wildfur." The shaggy-furred Tom pinned his ears back. Was this it? Had Hawkshell finally decided he wasn't worth keeping around, that banishing him from the colony was the best choice? If only Field Colony accepted full-grown outsiders into their ranks, he would have left of his own accord ages ago. "The mentors and I spent some time discussing it this morning, and we agreed you will be the one to train Pool as your first task toward becoming a mentor." Pool's mouth fell open. "What? But I—" The white and gray Tom stopped his sputtered protest at Leafstorm's warning growl. "Hold on. Why wasn't I asked about this?" Wildfur demanded. He had never wanted more than the life of a simple ranger, and he barely wanted that to begin with. What was Hawkshell thinking, making him a mentor? "Are you questioning your captain's orders?" Leafstorm hissed. "Yes, I am," Wildfur snapped back. Hawkshell silenced Leafstorm with a glare before the small Molly could get into an argument with Wildfur in front of the whole colony. "The original plan was to have Breezeheart monitor your training of Pool and decide afterward if you would be a good mentor. Now there is no choice. Birdflight cannot do all of a mentor's duties by themselves. They will need help, and despite your hesitance, I think additional responsibilities will serve you well, Hawkshell explained. Poole practically trembled when Wildfur looked at him. Wildfur snorted. If you say so. I do, Hawkshell said. Rustling near the top of the hollow announced the arrival of Tigerstripe and Snowstorm. They did not come too close to the fallen log that led into the base, just in case the reek of blood drew predators into the heart of Marsh Colony. Besides, the bodies had a long journey to make to the dead swamp. It wouldn't be sensible to drop them in the hollow, only to drag them back out again. Leafstorm looked up at her captain. Hawkshell's age rarely showed, her naturally gray fur and stern expression hiding the signs of passing time. Now, with sorrow weighing more heavily on her than gravity ever could, the fading of Hawkshell's dark gray fur to silver around her muzzle, and the fraying patches around her shoulders were more apparent. Leafstorm, please announce which cats will attend the moonlight meeting. Kestrel Snap, Falcon Swoop, Crowstalker, and I shall deliver these fine rangers to their final resting place before meeting you at the crossing log tonight. Yes, Captain. Leafstorm took Hawkshell's place to address the colony as the burly Grey Molly ran up the log and out of the base, her selected rangers following close behind. No one wanted to be out in the dead swamp after dark any longer than was necessary. The small second was keenly aware of how out of place she was standing in front of the captain's den. She raised her voice and barked out the orders. Guarding our home is top priority until we know what happened. Wildfur and Poole will come to the moonlight meeting. We can't risk both mentors leaving at the same time. I'll lead our group to the crossing log to meet with Hawkshell's group. Everyone else, help the keepers reinforce the base and stay alert for anything out of the ordinary. The crowd dispersed to their tasks, leaving behind the cats who were to attend the meeting. Poole stared enviously at Birdflight and Ice, the pair already chatting amicably about training and what they would do the following morning. Birdflight broke from their pep talk and gave Wildfur a pointed look, nodding toward Poole. Wildfur grumbled under his breath. Might as well, I guess. Louder, he called, Hey, it's Poole, right? Yes. The scrawny kitten nearly leapt out of his fur. It occurred to the big Tom that he didn't know the first thing to say to the young cat. He settled on a straightforward introduction. I'm Wildfur. I know? Wildfur sighed. The coming months were going to be far too long. And that is the final part of Chapter 1 of the Alliance Saga, Book 1, Shifting Roots. I hope you guys have really enjoyed listening to these audiobook, in quotes, adaptations of this chapter and are looking forward to the release of the full book. And I'm just popping in real quick to say that the primary goal right now of my Patreon, the Roselin Books Patreon, is trying to get enough funding put together so that I can actually make more of these kinds of videos, preferably with an actual voice cast to play the different characters. As much fun as I have coming up with all the different voices, I really think that it would be a phenomenal listening experience if I was actually able to get voice actors. So if that's something that you'd be interested in helping me with, please check out the link in the description to my Patreon. That is the main thing that I am trying to get funded. And yeah, hope you enjoyed. Hope you're looking forward to the full release. Check back here for more details on that. I will be posting more as that release date gets closer. You can also follow the CarlottaStudios YouTube channel that I will also have linked in the description. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and a special thank you to my patrons. If you'd like to see your name here or in the description below, please consider joining my Patreon. Your support means so much to me and allows me to continue making content. If you want to support my content in different ways, consider buying my books, donating on Ko-fi, subscribing to the channel, or even just giving this video a like and comment. Any and everything is appreciated so much. Keep growing till next time, Rose Garden!